Hi everyone, my name is John Geldart with Access Group, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at creating a task in NPrinting. So in order to create a task in NPrinting, we're going to need a few different things ahead of time. So first, you want to make sure that you have an NPrinting application. Second, you're going to want to make sure that you have a report associated with that application, as well as a connection to a ClickView or ClickSense application, because when we run this task, we're going to be regenerating the cache on that connection, as well as you're going to need to make sure that any filters, any users, and any destinations associated with this report already exist in the NPrinting environment. And the last thing we're going to want to make sure that we have is the SMTP configuration all set and ready to go ahead of time, and that's only applicable if we're going to be sending out reports via email. So switching gears here and jumping over into the NPrinting Web Console, the first thing we want to do when creating a task is navigate over to our Publish Tasks page here. Now in here we're going to be able to see all of our published tasks. We're going to be able to make changes to them by either clicking on the task itself or clicking Edit under the settings wheel. We're going to be able to check and uncheck to see whether a task is enabled or not. And also from here, we're going to be able to delete tasks entirely. And also we can kick them off manually by using this Run Now button. So first things first, we are going to click on this Create Task button up here to create a new task. And here we can go ahead and go through and give our task a name. We can associate a description with it so that people coming in behind us understand what this task is doing. We can use this drop down here to associate our task with an NPrinting application, as well as we have some settings here such as days to keep for how many days we want NPrinting to keep the report. And we can have numbers of reports to keep set here. We also have our enabled checkbox, so this will show us whether or not this task is enabled or disabled, and this is the same radio button that we saw previously in the Publish Task screen. We also can set report security parameters here, so we can add a password to open and to write the reports, as well as we can also make changes to our notification settings. So if we want to be sending task notifications for this, we want to make sure that this checkbox is checked down here. Once you have everything filled out and your report is associated with an app, you'll be able to hit Create here. We'll jump over to this one though, because I already have a report task created for us, and we can kind of run through here and see what our settings are like. So from here, we can actually add a new report. And from this dropdown, we'll see all of the reports associated with that NPrinting application. Right now, we only have one report associated with this, so that's why we're only seeing the one option in the dropdown. So we'll select that. We'll change the friendly name here to John's Test Report. And we can select the format to be HTML. We can select the quality to be high, depending on what we want out of this report. And we also need to make sure that if we're sending this to be attached to an email, we want to have this checked off. And lastly, we're going to be able to enable and disable these reports just by using this radio button here. If you have any conditions associated with your report, you can go ahead and choose them from down here, and you can associate your expected result as well from down here. Now you'll notice we're going back just because I already have a report associated. Next, we'll jump over to users and groups. So here we can access our users and groups, and we can add and remove different users. So we can remove users just by using the settings wheel here and clicking on remove. And we can also add by clicking on this big green button up in the top right. And from here, we'll use this drop down to select myself, and I have my own test user here. And we will be able to enable and disable each user with the radio button here, and we can check them as either a newsstand or an email destination from here. Okay, so moving over to filters, we can go ahead and see that our associated filters with this report are on the left here. We can go ahead and select the ones that we want to use in this report and just click Add Selected to move them to the right. If we no longer want this, we can remove it by using this button here, and we can also use these down here to add all of the available filters or to remove all of the selected filters from here. Once we have a filter selected, we can go ahead and select our filter priority order. So if we did have multiple filters here, we could move them around, and we can just click this Update Task Filters on the right to go ahead and associate these filters with the report. For our destinations here, we're going to be able to check off our destinations for each individual user or group that we've associated in the previous tab. And you'll see up top, we've got kind of this cross table where we can see our newsstand destination or our email destination, and then the users and groups that might be associated with this report. And we can use this matrix to go ahead and check off, say we want newsstand for both of these users, but only email for one. We can do that. The other useful feature to note here is that if we just want to go email for all users, we can just click this radio button up here and it'll gray those out for us. And now we can jump over to the email message feature here. So we have checked off from default sender up here, meaning that it'll send from our NPrinting sandbox at accessgroup.com address. We can also set this to be a custom address through here, and we're going to send this to our user email address here. We can also use variables to change our CC and BCC values. So from here you can set your subject line. Right now I'm just calling this HTML test report for YouTube. And we can format our body in whichever way we want. We just have HTML formatting and then a very simple body here. And once we have everything completed here, we are going to be able to save in the bottom right. And also we can make sure that we have our reports attached. So from here we can set no reports attached on this selected attachments, and we can go ahead and see which attachments have been selected, or we can just click all reports attached, and it'll make sure that any report that gets generated that we've selected up in this reports tab here gets sent out with this email. Okay, so moving on to our triggers section here, we can go ahead and click create new trigger in the top right to make a new trigger. So from here you can go ahead and set a name for your trigger, and you can give it a description here. We can check enabled or disabled for this, as well as we can go ahead and create our schedule. You can see there's a lot of functionality here. You can have it occur on selected days of the week and multiple times of the day. But for us, we are just going to go once at this date, and it is going to run at this time. And it will run in Eastern time zone. So we're going to go ahead and click create here. And from our trigger screen, say we no longer want this, we can go ahead and delete from here or edit it from here. And finally, we're going to move on to our conditions. So from the top right here, we can go ahead and click add condition. From this drop-down, we'll see the conditions that exist and are associated with this. We've got one condition that's associated, this test condition here. We can go ahead and select our expected result and add condition from here. And if we want to go ahead and edit this condition, we can do so here. And if we wanted to remove this condition, we could just remove it from here. And it'll give us a little confirm box, and boop, there it goes. So finally, now that we have this task created, all we have to do after this, because we're not going to wait for that once only trigger to come around, we can just go ahead and run this. And we will see that this task was successfully scheduled for execution. And finally, we can jump over to our task executions page by just going admin at the top down to task executions. From here, we can see our reports that have run. We can go ahead at the top here and click on the most recent run. And we can see that the task ran, but it did generate 2 warnings here. And this is going to be just because of that test user that I created that had no values associated with them. And in the top right here, if we wanted to troubleshoot this further, we can go ahead and download the actual log file straight from here, and we can go ahead and troubleshoot it from there. But that will about complete it for us. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you guys have any good ideas for future videos down in the comments below.